It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over. Setting up the flag now. Now, you can see the stars and stripes.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Knicks Wall podcast. I am Anthony Corbo. I'm your host. You can follow me I'm back to @wish I was Corbo. I don't give a fuck. On Twitter. You can follow my co-host. I have Kyle Maggio here with me.
What's going on, everybody?
He's at Kyle Maggio on Twitter. He works for Whistle Sports. Give them a follow as well. I've got Mike Cortez with me as well.
What's going on?
And that's at Cortez Era on Twitter. We're part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Check out our sponsor, betonline.ag. We live in a very strange place right now. It's been a couple of weeks. I think we were going to record last week, and the news of the sudden NBA season closure came down on us. Suspension, postponement, whatever you want to call it. It came down on us, and yeah, I think it was just kind of overall a little too shocking. I don't think we even really kind of made the call that night. We just kind of let it go. Figured we'd come back to it with just a little bit of space, and once we saw things are going to go down, but just about everything is stopped right now. And all of us, we've always recorded this from home, so nothing different here, but yeah, things are shut down. The NBA season stopped. The Knicks season comes to a screeching halt. Things are in a strange place for them, as was kind of usual, as much of a strange place as the rest of the NBA is in right now. But I mean, it's a really, really strange world to live in where, nothing's going on, but especially there's no basketball to take our, attention away from all that. And that's kind of really frustrating right now. Mike, how are you handling this situation right now?
I'm still adjusting. Not to give too much away, but my town in particular is one of the epicenters for the virus. So we've kind of quarantined ahead of everyone else. So just getting adjusted to that. Knicks-wise, it's just funny that the last moment we get from the Knicks was actually pretty solid. And one more rumor but belief amongst Knicks fans I wanted to get out now while it's still on my mind. Everyone panicking about beating the Hawks, messing up draft odds. Where were you a couple of months ago? The Pelicans won 30-something games and won the lottery. The lottery odds are so balanced. It doesn't matter if we won or lost that game. So please stop. All right, my rant's done.
I really appreciate that you still had that take in you, like that you've been waiting to get that take off for so long.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking about for 2 weeks. Just because I saw it on Twitter, and I was just like, it just kept getting me mad because all summer we were like, it doesn't matter. We can win games. We want to be somewhat competitive. And then people start panicking the minute we win a game. Like, oh, this could be the reason we don't get LaMelo. Shut the fuck up. Like, do you just panic for no reason?
Yeah, totally. There's one of those games every year. Like, whether we do well in the lottery or do poorly in the lottery, like, there's every single year we're in that position, there is a game that someone will point to as the game that stopped us from getting X player, when really it doesn't really matter at all. It's literally just a matter of ping pong balls. Kyle, what's going on with you, buddy? How are you doing right now? How are you handling the whole situation? What's been weirdest to you about all this so far?
I've been holed up in Connecticut. No problems whatsoever. And listen, I'm taking this very seriously, obviously. We're all locked in, but to me, this is a good situation, man. You guys know how much I like being at home and how much I like working at home. And that's exactly what I do now. So as long as I don't get the virus, I'm good with however long we need to be here. I am prepared. I am enjoying it. I'm sitting around drinking coffee, hanging with my dogs all day, eating snacks in my kitchen, having a good time. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Just making the best of it, I guess.
Yeah, and then as far as basketball wise, has there been any burning takes you've been waiting to get off? I mean, anything you've noticed over the last couple of weeks working at Whistle? Actually, that's even a better place to go right now. What's it been like working at a sports media company right now in the wake of there being no sports? What's been kind of like your insider experience here?
We've had to dig deep in the archives a little bit, and I mean, the only thing we could really do is, and it's kind of not some secret sauce, but it's just what everyone kind of has to do, and it's nostalgia and streaming and just trying to basically keep people occupied. I mean, that's all we can really do at this point. It's not like one league or one sport is canceled. It's everything is suspended up for who knows how long. So it's just unfortunate, but working at Whistle, basically we're just trying to focus on, we'll stream a little bit. So if anybody's trying to hop on and play anything, Fortnite, 2K, I want to do COD, but I'm unsure if that's brand safe enough for us to do right now. So that's on hold, but I mean, hit me up. It's just at Kyle Maggio on PlayStation, and let's stream some stuff. We can do it for 2K also. I'd like to play some of the remaining matchups to fill that void. Play a little like Knicks Celtics tonight. I think that'd be fun. Or last night for you folks listening to this pod. But I don't know. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, we got to fill that void somehow.
Full disclosure, I've still been playing 2K19 for the last year. And I feel like it's not really worth it to buy a new 2K game every year.
I do every 2 years typically.
Yeah, so like I'm on 19 right now, and like pretty much my 2K experience is, or last year I was playing a little bit online, but my 2K experience this year has been largely me just running a my team kind of simulation up until the 2040s. Where I'm constantly loading in like historic draft classes and just dropping them in the middle of the season. So like you randomly have like a team with like old ass Zion Williamson at like 35 years old and like a 22-year-old Magic Johnson passing him the ball and like all that kind of shit. So but yeah, I think in the wake of everything that's going on, I'm going to have to renew my PlayStation Plus account and go get that 2K20. Because I need to start playing online again.
Oh, did I we have some air to fill on this podcast, but did I tell you guys my tragic PlayStation story? So boom, trying to stream for Whistle yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, and trying to get Twitch set up, trying to log out of the Knicks Wall, which is like almost default. Half of my things logged into is the Knicks Wall, and so I log out, make sure I'm not doing a Whistle stream for the Knicks Wall, right? And then I log back in and I log in under Whistle. Everything's good, right? I sync it up, checks out, cool. I do the broadcast, it gets stuck saying preparing, so it's not letting me enter the broadcast. So I was like, strange. So trying to figure it out, reset it a few times, nothing's working. So all of a sudden I go to like back out of it, and then my PlayStation like force resets. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not good. And then it tries to turn back on, and then it can't. And then it's like, oh, like it cannot start or whatever error. Like you have to upload the update. Like I had to manually update it basically. So I had to go on my computer, download an update for the PlayStation on a flash drive, put it on, but then that didn't work. So I had to reset the PlayStation to factory settings. Was the only chance, the way that I could salvage it. So I had to wipe it clean. So
wait, were you able to remove your hard drive from it first?
No, I don't know how to do that.
It's like right on the front of it. You can just like pull the fucking hard drive right out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. Yeah, I wiped everything.
Sorry, bud. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it needed to be in there in order for it to be factory reset, but
I don't know. I'll take a look after this because I didn't think I could take anything out. But
yeah. Anywho, so
devastating,
very much so. Also devastating is the fact that, or depending on what lines you look through, but the Knicks season is over. well, temporarily suspended, I guess. But for all purposes right now, the Knicks season has ended. What did the temporarily final record end up being? I should have that in front of me. The Knicks ended up finishing up to this point in the season 12th in the East with a 21-45 record in 66 games. Isn't that exactly how many games the lockout, the 2011-12 season ended up running?
I thought it was 50 something for the lockout.
I thought it was 66.
Yeah, because the NBA season right now, well, for at least the Knicks, a couple of teams looks like they went to like 47, 48, or 67, 68. But the Knicks finished with 66 games, which I found to be kind of funny.
Yeah, the 2011-2012 season was 66 regular season games.
Oh, that's funny. Kind of stopped right at the same time. But anyway, so yeah, they finished just above the Hawks, or they finished just above the Cavaliers, the Hawks, and the Pistons in the East. We had, I mean, I guess do we want to start with free agency here? Kind of go through some, the highlights and the lowlights of this season with this team that we love so much.
Sure, yeah, because I feel like I'm going to use all my draft talk on draft season anyway. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I feel like the 2019-20 Knicks season began at 11:59 p.m. on June 30th, 2019, with Kevin Durant announcing that he was signing with the Brooklyn Nets. So we knew that was off the table. We knew Kyrie would be going there too, and then the Knicks ended up getting into their their contingency plan. And do we remember who the first free agency signing was for them?
For the Knicks?
Yeah, in this summer.
Julius Randle was the first.
Yeah, Randle. He was
Julius Randle came
immediately
first
after Durant,
Like seconds after, it felt like. As soon as they wanted to be right behind that, basically.
So Julius Randle is the contingency plan who comes into place. And then we slowly but surely over the course of the next couple of weeks, we start acquiring Taj Gibson. We get Peyton was way later on. Bullock was signed initially, but then he ended up kind of backing out, or they had to rework his contract because of his whole the whole medical thing. You had Marcus Morris came along, and towards the end of free agency, or the end of the initial burst of free agency, you had Wayne Ellington signing in. So yeah, you had all these players come and join the team. Not exactly the splashy signing that the Knicks thought they would have, but we had RJ Barrett. We were kind of ready to roll into the summer league. What were your summer league? Do you guys remember your summer league takeaways for after with RJ Barrett and Iggy Brasdeikis?
It was a panic at first because RJ was pretty bad the first day.
Right.
But each game was much better, and by the end of it, I was very hopeful.
Do you guys remember when the craziest thing that happened to the NBA was an earthquake that happened at Summer League?
Yo, shit, that's right. I completely forgot.
No. Stop it. Hold on. The earthquake didn't happen at Summer League.
Oh, that's right.
Alonzo Trier caused the earthquake at Summer League. People forget this. He was dunking at that exact moment.
You know the sad part?
This is factual.
That's the highlight of his season as a Knick.
Yeah,
it's criminal that they didn't. It's criminal they didn't play him more. It's criminal.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest gripe on the season, honestly.
Criminal. League worst offense. League worst offense. We don't play the most efficient guard we have. Okay. Okay.
So we have panic about RJ.
Stupid.
We have the panic about RJ at first, but then he ends up having some big games. Iggy has some big games. They're both good to go in there. We start getting into the season, the preseason, and do we still have our initial predictions from earlier this season in the back of our heads?
Yeah, I said
we did the Knicks Wall roundtable at the beginning of the season, and we all made predictions. I believe mine was 28 wins.
Yeah, I think I said 30. I want to say I was in that same neighborhood, so I don't feel as stupid because I think if the season ever finished, and to be clear, I think we're done seeing Knicks basketball, even if basketball does come back. I think they'll go right into the playoffs. But yeah, I think they were on pace to win like 25, 27.
I think, and I have to go back and listen to that pod, but I'm almost certain I said 27. I said between, like, if I didn't say an exact number, I said,
I have them in front of me right now.
I think I said before 20, like between 24 and 27.
Okay, so I'm going to go down the list of all of our staff because I think it would be a good idea to just kind of call out our staff right now, too, because thank you, everybody on our staff, for doing everything you did this year. Stone Strankman.
Stoney.
31 and 51.
Damn, Stoney.
Brian Gibberman, 25 and 30.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Aaron Summers, 29-53.
Okay.
Kyle Maggio, 27-55.
Hey, there it is.
Jess Reinhardt, 27-55.
Okay.
Kevin Lewis, 29 games. Ryan Gray, who are we gonna talk about? What Ryan put out later on the show?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, we have something new from Ryan. We're gonna talk about that in a couple of weeks. The tease. Ryan goes, I don't care if we go 2-80 as long as those 2 wins are against the Mavs. I'll be happy.
and this is the only time the Knicks have delivered on one of our preseason demands.
Yep. They beat the Mavs twice. That was it.
Boy, did they beat the shit. Hold on, they beat the shit out of the Mavs. Let's take a minute to appreciate it. They beat the shit out.
That was the highlight of the season for sure.
The game in Dallas was unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, okay. Continue. It was great.
God, there is some crazy shit in here. Okay, where were we? John Priest. I don't want to know. 22 wins, I think, was his quote.
Hey, he's the closest one right now.
Reed Goldsmith, 26 and 56. Jared Hamburg, 32-50. I said 27 and 55 with RJ Barrett runner up in the Rookie of the Year race. It's not quite there. Okay, quick pause for me to Sean, disclaimer if I butcher your name, but Sean Geddes, Jesus, dude. God damn it. 43 and 39.
Oh, Sean.
He goes, Duck says chairs are thrown at the idea of optimism.
I warned him. I told him to walk it back immediately. I was like, this is not. I was like, even for an optimist, this is too optimistic. Like the optimism, the realistic optimism scale tapped out at like low 30s, in my opinion. If a lot broke right, and that seems to be true. Like if RJ had been like slightly better, slightly more consistent / efficient this year, if Mitchell had started games instead of coming off the bench, little things like that.
The Amare team went 42 and 40. Like the Amare Mello team, the first year went fucking 42 and 40. And this team was going to go 43 and 30, or this team was going to go 43-39. That's crazy.
I told him.
Last prediction we have on here right now, and there are more members of the Knicks Wall staff, and thanks to you all, but Stephen Lewis had us at 34 and 48, which is also optimistic, but not quite as crazy as Sean's like 43 and 39, dude. Oh, we love you. All right, so yeah, I would say I think some of our predictions were pretty much on. I think that we were mainly kind of thinking they would be a high 20s team, probably about like 10th in the East or so. They fall a little bit short of that. They were 12th in the East. I had them missing out on a playoff spot by a good margin, but not quite tanking territory. Was where I pictured them to be.
Yeah, pretty much. I just thought they were going to be a regular bad team.
Yeah.
Like, that was my stance, was like last year they were historically bad. This year, I don't think they'll actually be any good, which means the only reasonable route for them to go is to improve by, 5 to 7 games? Because you have actual NBA players on your roster now. Like I feel like that was the only course of action. Like it just, I couldn't see anything else. And as always, don't want to toot my own horn, but not wrong.
So let's take a look at the like the first chunk of the season here. Let's talk about like September to December or so. I guess we can really just kind of talk about the season in two chunks. Let's just talk about it in two chunks here. Let's go Fizdale era and let's go Mike Miller era. So from the beginning of the season up until the point when David Fizdale was fired, which was in the middle of December. Let's get the date for that.
I believe it was early January.
Oh, was it early January? I'm all mixed up here.
I believe so.
But regardless, let's figure it out from there. So right as the season was kind of beginning on the Fizdale era, what was the kind of the first thing I was kind of noticing was, there was gonna be spacing issues if there was nothing we were gonna be able to do about it. It was December 6th, 2019, Fizdale was fired.
Okay.
So the spacing was an apparent problem from the very beginning, and I would say that and RJ Barrett's free throw was kind of the biggest initial issues that I remember seeing early on in the season.
Yeah, I feel like Fizdale was I'll play devil's advocate first. I feel like he was sold on something that he never got to use. He wanted to coach Porzingis, never happened. He thought he was going to coach Durant and Kyrie, didn't happen. And I feel like his system was very ISO heavy. So for that, I don't fault him. I do fault him for not adjusting whatsoever. I don't know what possessed him to think that, all right, I don't have Kevin Durant, let me use Julius Randle. Or I don't have Porzingis, let me use Julius Randle. And Marcus Morris will be my other ISO scorer, and everything will be fine. The fact that he went through with that for 2 months is just baffling. And anyone who defends him now is just, you're either a sheep or I don't know. I don't know what else to say to you.
Yeah, I mean, I like David Fizdale. I advocated for him strongly. I was excited about the hire. I thought that was a good move. I thought based on a lot of the numbers from what he did in Memphis, it made a lot of sense. He did get them to play much smaller, much faster, shoot much more from deep, shoot better from deep, much less mid-range. It made tons of sense to assume that at least some of that would translate over. And there was no change from what he inherited. I mean, at least with, Jeff Hornacek here, they were running backdoor cuts and screens and some off ball. I mean, it wasn't great, but I mean, at least he was a coach. You know what I mean? Fizdale just didn't have it. It was just like there was no system. It was just ISO. It was just get the ball, ISO, just one pass, one shot. There was no offense. There was no movement. It's just, I mean, we watched a year of Emmanuel Mudiay ISO ball pretty much. And then, beginning of this year was just a mess. Couldn't win a game to save his life. It's rather unfortunate. I wanted it to work out. I'm still a little bit baffled as to even, despite the roster not being good, how he couldn't get them to play faster or shoot more threes at least with, have a better shot profile. I'm very confused by how
it seemed like they at least tried to go after shooters in free agency, like with Ellington, Bullock, and Ellington's shot kind of disappeared on him this year.
It did, but they don't. The thing is, they don't run a system that is good for shooters. Like the good system would be, the smart system would be the one that they keep stumbling on accidentally with their lineups is, give RJ the ball, let him be a decision maker with it, give him shooters and spacing, and then all of a sudden look at all these wide open threes that he was generating and seeing, and the floor was so wide open, and it helped him get better looks at the rim and wherever he wanted. That was the way to do it. But the issue is nobody ever does the obvious thing with this team, with the roster. That's the issue. We see them, there's flashes of it when they do something competent, whether it's accidentally or not, and then they don't go back to it. Mitchell Robinson playing better and better and better, and they still don't start him. It's just, what are you doing? Just start him. Still playing 30 minutes a game, but maybe we'll stop starting off games slow. You know what I mean? Maybe by the time he comes into the game, he could actually help us obtain a lead, and not work to go get one. It's I don't know. Fizdale didn't do enough to implement whatever system it was he was trying to implement, if there was one. It's just very sad.
What was your breaking point with Fizdale? Mine was when he actually explicitly said, yeah, we're trying to defend the paint, not the 3-point line. That was like when I just, washed my hands. I was just like, fuck this guy. Get him out of my sight.
Breaking point? I never really have like one breaking point. It's usually like you just, for me, it's always like I just slowly realize the jig is up. So like, it's like, all right, I go game by game. So it's like after like 10 games, it's like, all right, well, still nothing. 20 games. Okay, well, still nothing. Halfway through the season, well, I'm not seeing anything from this guy. Second half of the season, still nothing. Then they get Dennis Smith Jr., who, if nothing else, is a athletic point guard who likes to push the pace, which you should need in this NBA. Whether or not he's actually good anymore is a different story. But so I thought, okay, well, at least I got him. Maybe that's how they're going to start pushing the pace and everything. And second half of last year, it did at least look like that a little bit, right? And I think at least I said, well, I'll give him until next year to like get a training camp with Dennis, start with Dennis and see what happens. And then they signed Elfrid Payton, which I think we all kind of knew meant Elfrid Payton was going to end up starting. It felt that way. It always felt that way.
They were going to push Dennis Smith and Ntilikina for the backup spot.
Yeah, which to me was just so silly. It was like, why? Like what are we doing? Now I don't know. I'm not trying to make excuses for Dennis Smith Jr. obviously because he forgot how to play basketball this year, but it was just like every time they go to like do something, or even when they like stumble into a guy which would correctly identify with what Fizdale's system should have been, they don't use it. They're just like, all right, cool. We'll just get off for Payton and he'll just pound the air out of the ball for 20 seconds trying to find an assist, and that's the offense. It's like I just don't know how we always come to these same like terrible conclusions. It's just very unfortunate. So that's why I just go game by game, and then they eventually break me down, and eventually just realize like the jig is up. Like beginning of this year, I think when Elfrid was going to start, I was like, well, all right, I expect nothing from this team this year.
And yeah, just to put a bow on the first half, it was just a perfect storm of bad luck, bad coaching, and bad roster construction. Because Wayne Ellington not being able to shoot, that's just shit luck. Smith was hurt, I feel like, the whole year.
Before we turn the page over here to Mike Miller, like, is there a specific game maybe that sticks out, or a play, or any sort of highlight or low light that you guys can remember from like that first half of the season under Fizdale?
Frank going off in Dallas for sure. That was probably like the most exciting like 2-week stretch of the season for me, at least, because Frank, we've been talking about it for a couple of years and we sounded like fanboys, and for that 2-week stretch, and we'll talk about the second half momentarily, he's been showing that potential that we've all been saying it's there. So that Dallas, I guess, mini series, because it was so close together, that's probably my favorite or most memorable part of the first half.
Yeah, the Dallas games are great fun. It's just very, very, very enjoyable. But I don't know, man. There really wasn't anything memorable for me with the Fizdale era. I mean, the only thing that I found like memorable or enjoyable were, kind of one-off moments, mostly from last season, like them getting that big win against the Lakers, which ultimately meant nothing, but that was fun in a singular game kind of a sense. Initially I've always been a big Dennis Smith Jr. fan, but like seeing him go off a little bit when he first got here, when he went off for like 31 in Detroit, like that was fun to say, like actually have a point guard playing well one night was actually fun. And I had some kind of belief in him still, which is unfortunate where we're at now, but so that was good. But I mean, this year I was just so like, once they started playing and I saw the line, like I don't know, it was just so gross. Like I was like, all right, man, well, yeah, there was no like. It was a little hard
to say. It was a little hard to stay checked in. I will say, just the first Dallas game this season where the Knicks won, beat them 106-102. Frank Ntilikina's his box score of that game was 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks in 37 minutes. So, that was a big high point for me. I think I can say, like, we'll get to this a little bit more a little later on, but his kind of growth, which came in spurts and kind of really kind of solidifying a little bit more towards the end, but his growth was one of the biggest things for me this season.
And that.
All right, so you want to get something in on Frank?
Yeah, well, not that. Just the Mav game at MSG. I feel like that was the only time MSG felt like the 2013 season, I guess. That's probably like
that was few and far between this year.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get back up to that level. Like when Marcus Morris hit that 3, that building was shaking, and that was the first and last time.
Yeah. So David Fizdale gets fired on December 9th. Mike Miller, who was the Westchester coach last year, was an assistant coach before that this year. Mike Miller steps up and becomes the Knicks' new head coach. The one thing I will say that really stuck out to me from this era, and is something that stuck out to me from the David Fizdale era too, is we still had huge spacing issues, and we still had the reluctance. We were starting Taj Gibson for the vast majority of the year over Mitchell Robinson for one reason or another. We still had these moments where Bobby Portis was soaking up all this time and all this energy and all these minutes. And clogging up the lane so RJ Barrett couldn't do what makes him good. And, and even like you had him getting in the ways of guys like, Julius Randle, who had a mostly lost year here. And, many of the other bigs that we signed. I mean, Marcus Morris did super well on the perimeter until he was traded and really led this team. But, he was able to work around it. The rest of the guys on the team really weren't able to do that. And you could see some huge issues on the inside. So, I mean, though Mike Miller did the team, I don't know if it's more of a factor of him or if it's a factor of the team just kind of coming a little bit more together in January and in February a little bit more. But they did, start winning some games, and I think that you could see some semblance of them being able to work around each other, but nothing that would lead its way to winning basketball by any means.
I feel like initially he started out good because his first mission was finding Julius Randle the right place to attack, which he did for, first 10 or so games where he moved Julius Randle outside. So when Julius Randle was either driving to the rim or spotting up. So that was good. But kind of the same thing with Fizdale, where it's like, why aren't you playing the right people? That's what led me, like Miller has led me to believe that the front office is influencing who's playing, which obviously is false. But that's the way I feel when I watch the games, because Mitch, right now, if the season ends, which I'm assuming it is over, Mitch has the highest field goal percentage in the league. He should be starting, and he's not. Frank or Dennis should be starting at point guard over Elf. Like, that's not debatable. I don't care who says otherwise. So that's where my frustration is with Miller. Overall, he's not bad. He's not good.
I'm kind of with you on maybe the front office has a say, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I remember when I was at one of the games, I think it was the time they were playing the Magic, I asked them pre-game what the deal was with Mitchell Robinson's minutes and if he was, going to be starting at any point. And because, a lot of people felt he had earned it. And basically they told us, well, if you check the last couple games, he's been on an upward trajectory for a little while, and if we're going to keep on that track and basically to a point where he would eventually start. So I said, okay, that makes sense. Thanks. And then after the game, I checked, well, not after the game, during the game, I checked the minutes for Mitchell's box score, and he was not on an upward trajectory. In fact, the 4 games before that, he had played less than 30 minutes. And I think 2 of them were a decline from the game before. So it was, so what is the trajectory? What is that? That's not a trajectory. And it's not upward. Especially, like, don't tell me the last couple games. I mean, I can see the box score, man. I can Google it. You know what I mean? At least lie better if you're gonna lie about it. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating, but that's why I think, like, yeah, maybe somebody else has a say in it, because like, some of this stuff makes too much sense. The season ended today, and they canceled it. Standings are what they are. I don't know how you proceed, but, like, if it truly does end and there's no resolution to the finality of the season, then Mitchell Robinson, I think he breaks the all-time field goal percentage record, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
Like, doesn't he? He breaks Will Chamberlain's. So, like, he does that, and we know, like, he's top 5, I believe, if the season ends today, in total blocks and blocks per game. I think he's 5th in both.
Awesome. Yep.
So he does that and breaks the all-time field goal percentage off the bench, but he's not starting on a team that's not good and desperately needs a very impactful star and starting caliber player, and he's coming off the bench. It's laughable. So I don't know what the issue is with starting some of these guys, and I get, you want to look like an NBA team and have NBA players on the floor. I understand that. I understand you want to look respectable and not just bank on these kids making you look bad if they actually aren't very good and you took the wrong picks. And it's not just a rough patch in their development. I understand. But there's guys who are clear-cut good now, like Mitchell Robinson, who are NBA players and are going to be stars in this league. And they need to play, and they need to start. And it's not just about playing 30 minutes off the bench, because a lot of those minutes are against second units. And while that's great, Mitchell Robinson, part of his development, needs to be playing against starters. So it's like, why are you're hurting yourself? It just doesn't make sense in the short or long term. You have a very good player right now who needs to be playing against the other team's better players to help you neutralize them. Like, I just don't know why we're keeping him on the bench. And the foul thing, just please save it. We've debunked it 1,000 times. It's not a real thing. Everybody struggles with fouls, especially centers, especially shot blocking centers. If he's not going to play through foul trouble, it makes very little sense for him to even play the game of basketball. He's a center. If he's contesting shots, he's always going to be in foul trouble. He needs to learn how to play with them. So I just don't know what they're doing or not doing with Mitchell Robinson. That part is very frustrating to me. But the other guys, I could at least try to talk myself into, like, well, Knox is actually not very good. Okay, I see why they want these other wing players to play a little bit more. I can get it, But then it's like, well, what the hell did Alonzo Trier do to anybody? He was very efficient last year as an undrafted guard. It's like, I thought he more than proved he needs some kind of minutes, even as a 6th, 7th man, and he's getting nothing. And we have one of the worst offensives in the league yet again. And it's like, we don't play him. So it's like little things like that. Dotson being consistent every single time he's on the floor, shooting like over league average from deep, playing good, strong physical defense. He guards anybody 1 through 4. And it's like, even then, why is he not playing? For what? It's like those little things bother me. It's like these are like layup no-brainers, and they choose to just have names, I guess, of NBA veterans that they value more than some of these guys. But it's frustrating, to say the least. I think that's the biggest feeling from this season was frustration for a lot of fans. It's like we finally, like, all were brought into the rebuild, as a whole, as a unit, as a fan base. Everyone was like, fine, we'll do the rebuild. We don't care. We'll do the long one. And then, even then, no matter how we feel about the kids and their development, they need to play. Like, they need to play. No matter how high or low you are in them, like, you need to play them. You need to see what you got, or else what's the point of drafting them? So we're all brought into the rebuild, and then they don't like go through with it. Basically, they kind of half-ass it. They get RJ Barrett. They stumble ass backwards into a good draft pick like RJ Barrett, and they put him, with the worst possible lineups that you could have put him. Like, you didn't just watch him at Duke and see the types of lineups that you needed to avoid, and he's like in a somehow worse situation. It's like, what? Like, please, just like be smart a little bit. Just one time, just be smart. Like, I don't know where these decisions are coming from, but just I hope with this Leon Rose era, just get competent basketball people back. I don't care.
So,
they don't got to be brilliant. Just be better.
So we're going to keep going for a little bit longer here, but and I want to get into the Leon Rose era. But first, I want to I gotta go through this ad read that we have here. Currently, no NBA, NHL, or college basketball. You might think there's nothing to bet on. Well, you'd be wrong. Bet Online still has hundreds of places to wager, from their online casino to poker and blackjack, all open 24 hours a day and all online. Sports aren't totally done. There's still mixed martial arts, and esports is on the rise. If you're into entertainment, you can bet on American Idol, the elections, the spelling bee, and even Nathan's hot dog eating contest. Be sure to use promo code BlueWire to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your new ticket to online action. All right. So Leon Rose era begins the day that Steve Mills is fired. Let me get that exact date up real quick. February 4th. So Steve Mills is ousted as president. Scott Perry hangs on. It takes on both roles for a little while until we start hearing some rumblings about Leon Rose, joining the team, but starts to get weird that he hasn't signed. There's stuff about, the Knicks have, just before that, Steve Stout joined them as a brand advisor. And Worldwide West was supposed to come in, and he might be, he's not coming in an official capacity, but should be along the team now. But ultimately, it comes down to former agent Leon Rose. He had to do some stuff with the Dwayne Wade jersey retirement ceremony before he could officially sign the contract. But all that gets out of the way. Leon Rose joins. He puts out a letter that says he'll be working in the background for the rest of the season, to get things prepared for next season and to, change the team up. But we don't really know anything about what his plans are, what his vision's looking like, anything of that matter. So things are still pretty unknown in that respect. But by the time we get to this point in the season, by the time we get to early February, it's pretty clear that this season is a wash for really. Competitively, it's already done there, but we're really not seeing too much signs of growth. We are getting ready to trade Marcus Morris at this point. So yeah, those are really the two big turning points in the at the back half of this season was the obviously Steve Mills being fired, new president comes in Leon Rose, and then you trade away your best players after the best season of his career. And the Knicks ended up getting a draft pick for that. And I think they lucked out there because given the state of where things are right now, Marcus Morris only played 12 games for the Clippers. So, but yeah, in New York this season, Morris averaged 19.6 points, almost 5.5 rebounds a game, shot, very well. He had a 85% free throw percentage. He was shooting over 44% for the field. He was doing it, as our leading scorer and really the only guy who can make it happen on the team, on a night-to-night basis. And then he was, ousted to the Clippers. The Knicks got the first round pick they were trying to get. And I think everyone was about ready to check out on this team at that point. I know honestly, that's pretty much when I called it for the season too. It was just getting frustrating to see them try to put together some stretches, but they did have some runs after that. There was a couple of games at the end of the season this year where the Knicks seemed to pull it together. We're talking about that one. There was that Chicago win. There was the Houston win, and the last Atlanta win of the season. There were some big moments for the team at that point where you could just see some of the young talent was able to get a little bit more run on the court.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird spot. And I'm happy we have that draft pick. Remember when people were freaking out about possibly trading Morris? Excuse me. Since he wanted to be here. But I don't know. I feel like Leon Rose, I think we already went over this, where it's, we'll believe it when we see it type of thing, because we've rolled out the red carpet for other people and nothing's really changed for the last 7 years. And there's not much to change drastically this offseason unless they pull off a big trade. So for Leon Rose, I just want a good coach first. That's like my first order of business.
Well, who knows what ends up happening, with the actual offseason now, when that actually happens and all that stuff. But like putting that aside for the moment, they still do have all those player options or those team options they can let go of on, guys like Bobby Portis and the like. So I wonder what ends up being his move with all that stuff. But I guess we could talk offseason in just a few minutes now and what the Knicks should pivot to from there. But Kyle, did you have anything that kind of stood out for you for the back half of the season?
I mean, I was impressed with RJ. That little stretch he had, the kind of I wouldn't say close the season out, but I mean, he was playing better since the All-Star break pretty considerably. I was enjoying seeing how he was going to finish the rest of the season. That was my central reason for watching. But, I mean, it was good to see him get back on track a little bit and pick up some of those averages. Before he went through that last slump, he had almost gotten his 3-point average up to 34%, and his field goal percentage was like 42-ish%. And then he went through this nasty slump where both those things came down. I think he was shooting 30% from deep and like 38.5% from the field. And then after this little stretch, I think he had just finished the season at like 40 and 32%. So it was just nice to see him like fight back a little bit and try to get those averages up. And I thought they were playing him with some better lineups finally, I felt. And I thought, he had a chance to really close the year on a high note. So kind of bummed he's going to miss like a whole month and a half or so of his rookie season. But, it is what it is.
Frank and RJ that's probably my biggest takeaway. They were really good together.
Yeah.
They figured out a nice little duo, and I know we were literally all of us, no matter how we felt about Dennis, we wanted to see him and Frank like start and play together. And we never really got that, and at least we saw RJ and Frank be together, and not just together, but like competent and had some decent chemistry. And it was nice because they're both very smart basketball players. And when you have two of those guys out there, good basketball tends to start happening. So I was encouraged. I kind of hope the Knicks keep Frank on the low. I am encouraged to see how those two play together. I just hope that they actually make Frank an actual part of the future. Like an actual, like, all right, bro, you're getting 25, 30 minutes a night, every single night. No excuses. We'll move you around a lot, but we got to have you on the floor. Like, yeah. At that point, I don't care where you play him. But if you're just like, look, like we need you out there, basically, like figure it out where you're going to get your points from, where you're going to pick your spots. But that little duo was nice. I enjoyed watching them try to, go to work together a little bit.
Yeah, and I want Frank's role going forward to fluctuate between Thabo Sefolosha, where he's a starter that doesn't need the ball to be effective, or Tony Allen, like when Tony Allen was on the Celtics, or even the Grizzlies. I don't think he started for the Grizzlies. But anyway, that defender off the bench who's definitely going to play down the stretch to stop the opposing team's best player. I feel like that should solidify Frank as like I think 3 people should definitely stay on the team. Team's core plans, Mitch, RJ, and Frank, and then whoever they draft whenever the draft does happen.
I definitely stand by my Frank stance. Around draft time, I said his ceiling reminded me of like Nick Batum. Like I stand by that. I feel like that secondary playmaker. I'll knock down some open threes. I can get to the rim, and I could play make a little bit. Play good defense. Remember, Nick Batum was like a very good defender for a short period of time too. So, like Frank can probably be a better defender than that, I hope. And it's like, if you can do that and then start to do a couple of those types of things, like you could fit in, like anybody could use a Nick Batum is what I'm saying. Like those kinds of guys have that fluidity to be able to be like, all right, I can score a little bit more tonight. Instead of 10 tonight, you need me to give you 15, 16. Okay, no problem. Oh, you need me to play make a little bit tonight. All right, I'll get you like 7-ish assists. Like, I feel like Frank's ceiling is like that kind of player where his game to game stats maybe aren't super flashy, but they're like consistent-ish, you know? So we'll see. It'd be nice if they, I don't know what an extension would look like for Frank right now. I don't even want to speculate, but it'd be nice if they got him for cheap and actually kept him for a little bit. A little bit. I think he could be part of some winning basketball.
Yeah, I would give him like 10 to 12 a year, right? Would you? Is that still like ridiculously?
I would give him, personally, I'd try to keep him under 10. I mean, 8-ish. I don't know if that sounds ridiculous to people. I'm not the salary cap guy here, but 8 seems fair. I don't know if I'd want to give him like 4 years, $40 million. I don't know. It seems a bit much for his inconsistent production. I mean, I'd want to give him 7, 8 and 3 years ish and go from there.
I would still probably go for the 4 for 40 or something. I mean, I'm not
Exum's deal?
Super versed in salary cap or anything either, but like, yeah, something around like Exum's deal is probably about.
I'm gonna try and find it.
I think he was somewhere around like probably 10 or 12ish a year. I think he might have gotten like a 4 for 44 or something of that nature.
Yeah. Well, I would still try and not lowball him, but like Kyle's price range. That's where I would start for sure.
I feel like he's going to you're going to get him for slightly above what his value is, but I don't see him crossing like a 15 million threshold.
Oh no. I would start him low. I mean, if I was.
So Exum made 11 per year, 3 years, 33.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean,
333. Yeah.
I mean, I'd honestly give my negotiation with Frank would start like 5 to 6, and then they'd probably want 12-ish, and then I'd probably come up to like 8 to 9. You know what I mean?
I mean, he's making what is he making now? He's got to be making like 5.5 now.
I believe so. I think that with the
so it's, I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I guess 8, 9 is where I would.
Yeah, that's why I think his value. I think his value sits around 8 or 9, but I think you end up paying around 11.
I would not want to. I would be queasy about paying him. So 12-ish, but
right now he's making 4.8. Next year he will make 6.1. His qualifying offer is in that 8 million range, so it's not off. I think they can get him at 9 or even 8. I think that's possible.
I would say between 9 and 12 is where I expect to see him fall.
Yeah, 12 is where I get a little queasy.
Right, exactly. So let's do this to wrap up this little section here. And then we'll talk about the offseason after this, but I want to go through a couple of players on the roster at the very least. And we'll keep it short. Let's try to keep these to, like less than 2 minutes a player and stuff, but I want to go down the roster and just give me, maybe your takeaway for that player for the season, and whether you expect him or would like him to be on the roster for next year. So I'm just going to start going down the order that Basketball Reference has him in right now, and we're starting with Bobby Portis here.
Would be perfectly fine never watching Bobby Portis play basketball ever again.
Bobby Portis played 66 games for the Knicks, started 5 of them, played 21 minutes a game, shot 45% from the floor, nearly 36% from 3, finished with 10 points a game, 0.3 blocks a game, 5.1 rebounds a game. And I very much share that same opinion that Kyle has. He's on a team option for next year. I believe like $4 million of his contract is guaranteed or something of that nature. I would be very pleased with the Knicks cutting him.
Yeah, get him out of my sight. That's my analysis.
Yep. So that's Bobby Portis there. Next we have Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox played in his second year, played 65 games for the Knicks, started 4 of them, played 17.9 minutes per game, a full 10.9 minutes per game lower than his rookie season. His field goal makes and attempts last season are down from 4.5 and 12.2 to 2.2 and 6.2. Shot nearly 36% from the floor, 32%, almost 33% from 3, 6.4 points per game, literally exactly half of what his averages were last season. 0.9 assists per game, 0.4 blocks per game, 2.8 rebounds per game. Kevin Knox was literally half the player that he was last year.
Hey, you
all
left out the
statistical
most
measures.
important stat. What you missed the most important stat. He's only 20 years old.
20 years old.
He's only 20 years old. How do you leave that out?
I've never seen a 20-year-old go out there and get 15
He's gonna be
minutes and get 15 minutes of cardio like Kevin Knox does every night.
He's gonna be a quarter of what he was his 21-year-old season. He's gonna average 3.2 points per game.
I wish he wasn't so bad. It makes me uncomfortable how like not good at basketball he is. Like, and I'm not even trying to do it to be funny or bash him. I promise you. Like it.
This was a shockingly bad season.
He just doesn't. It's like he doesn't understand basketball. I'm not even trying to be mean. Like he never knows where his man is on defense. The only time he makes a play on defense is when he does like the little chase down block, which is a tremendous thing when he lands it once a month, but it's like that's not the norm. You know, he's not going to be in that position normally. That's like a transition move typically.
Right.
Like his actual half court defense, the one that we need him to be good at, like it's non-existent. So like I'm glad he's making a couple more blocks and those were generally pretty good, but it's like, you know, the vast majority of his defense is just not existent. His 3-point shooting went down statistically, not drastically, obviously, but it went down.
His 3-point shooting. Well, that's kind of the crazy thing to me about him is like in just about all respects, his like percentages are not super far off of what they were last year.
I mean,
like his field goal percentage is down from 37 to 36%, and his 3-point percentage is down from 34% to 32%, nearly 33%. So like, but his output was literally halved, and that that's a big sign. I mean, that means if he was going to try to put out the exact same output that he was going to put out last year, you would expect that efficiency to be lower a little bit, and that's not a good sign for what he put up.
Yeah, the saddest part about Knox is I feel like this was the perfect season to have him in the G League and, you know, really develop a game. Because he was like a blank canvas prospect where literally draft age was one of the key things to drafting him because he has like a decent shot. It's not like there's nothing wrong with his game. It's just awareness and not having a go-to move. And go ahead.
Right. And you touched on something very important here where it's more than frustrating that neither coach, or maybe it's more of a front office thing, but nobody decided to utilize the G League whatsoever this season. Like other than, I mean, we signed Kenny Wooten out of there, who didn't end up appearing in a game, but we signed him to a 2-way contract. But other than that, like, no, I don't know if any player was assigned to the G League other than like Brasdakis throughout the entire season. The fact that, you didn't like, other than, I mean, even in the past couple of years, like Neil Aquino wasn't getting burned down there. Knox wasn't getting burned down there.
G League, man. Steph Curry.
I know it's you didn't like the Knicks have only ever looked at it as they're like, diamond in the rough patch where they could get, guys like Trey Burke out of it, or Langston Galloway before him, or Kenny Wooten this season. Like it's always been the go-to source for the Knicks instead of them using it as a tool to try to motivate their young players to become better players.
Was Chris Copeland the god from G League too, or is he just Summer League? Strictly Summer League.
He was a Summer League god, I think.
Okay, I knew he was definitely Summer League. I didn't know if he was also G League. But yeah, I wish they treated the G League how baseball treats the AAA, I guess, where even if a guy's coming back from injury or he's just struggling, it's like, yeah, go down a level and just refine your game and come back up. And it's worked. It works in baseball. It works in basketball. We talked about it weeks ago, the Raptors with Pascal Siakam. That's how he developed his game, by getting reps, because he wasn't playing with the Raptors and Knox wasn't playing this year. Why are you just going to have him sit there?
Yeah, I mean, so let's move on to the next player here at this point. We got a couple more to go through on this list, of course. Julius Randle is the next name here. Julius Randle, in his first year with the Knicks, played 64 games in 32.5 minutes a game, averaged 19.5 points. Let's see, 9.7 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists, decent box score stats in that respect, but did so on 46% field goal shooting and 27% from the 3-point line. Julius Randle, despite his good stats, was more of a nuisance on this season, I would say, than he was a help. He seemed to constantly be getting in the way or not have an idea of where to go. I don't think all of that was his fault. I think there were a lot of spacing issues that were out of the players' controls this season, but Randall showed that he didn't really have another gear that he could go to. His three-point shot didn't fall all season, and he, for a guy who is under contract for next season, has a smaller team option the year after that, and still has, is supposed to be a leader on this team. He didn't show us a whole lot of promise this year.
So the first thing that I would like to say is that I think often we have this problem with the New York Knicks where they sign players who should be second and third options and then ask them to be the number one option. And it's a strange situation to be in when you miscast people. So they definitely paid Julius Randle to come in and be a top option on this team. And they definitely played like it, trying to always dump the ball into him and let him go to work. It did not turn, into winning basketball often enough. And I'm a pretty big Julius Randle fan. But, if you look at some of the numbers too, I do remember that as hard as fans were on him for a while, and as high as a lot of fans are on Frank Ntilikina, they had the same net rating. I think this was as of last month. They're both +6 when they were on the floor. So he was good. He was fine. It just wasn't really impactful is the issue. And this team is flawed enough as it is, and if he's your top guy, your top gun, you're going to have a lot of problems. So that's my whole stance on it. I understand the frustrations with him when he's spinning into double teams and trying to force the ball up, and he gets straight. He has many, many warts. He's far from a perfect player. I get it, but he does a hell of a lot on the boards. He does bring a playmaking aspect with being able to pass the ball and assist despite the turnovers. He's efficient most of the time, at least for what he's trying to do anyway, but he rebounds very well. And it's not the right fit and it's not the right role, but it still had some positive effects. I just think we're a little bit hard on what the situation was. It was like when Tim Hardaway Jr. had to step up and be the number one option with Kristaps Porzingis out. Of course that was going to go miserably. Of course that was. What did anybody expect? And then when they reduce his role again, oh, okay, suddenly he's a better basketball player like he was with the Hawks. So makes a lot of sense. Guys need to be in certain roles and certain fits. Not everybody is meant to be able to be the top scorer on a team and take all those shots. And there is a skill in needing to carry that offensive burden. And it's not right for certain guys. Some guys don't have the full playmaking ability to do it. Some guys don't have the scoring capability to fully do it. It's a tough ask, man.
The weird thing about Randall is I can see a clear role where I wouldn't mind him, and that's leading a second unit where he was in New Orleans. I feel like that's the perfect situation for him, where he can still jock and not play high stakes moments.
Well, even like you pointed out with when Mike Miller first took over and he was spacing Julius Randle out much more, he was still putting up numbers. He was putting up wild numbers. You can absolutely use him correctly. The way to not use him is just dumping the ball into the post. That's the one thing that's abundantly clear to everybody. The Pelicans rarely did that last year. The Pelicans rarely were just okay, Julius, you're going to get the ball in the block and go to work.
Yeah.
It was all the highlights when you watch these games, if he does catch there, it was one move to the basket. And then everything else is in transition. He's dribbling. He's coming up the side of the court. He's catching the ball on the move. They put him in positions to be successful. The Knicks haven't really done that aside from when Miller first took over. They know how to do it. They've done it before. It's really, to me, kind of boneheaded to go back to all right, we're just going to dump the ball in the post. It's who's signing off on this? Whose decision was this? We know where he's effective. You watched him do this in New Orleans and LA. That's why you're signing him, is because you watched him do this. You know how to use him right. Why are we purposefully going away from it, especially after you used it already? And we got good results. What are we? why would you possibly want to switch it up? That's what gets me. It's like this is part of like why not having a system sucks. But again, it is what it is. Just a very frustrating year.
Right. And anyone who watched him at Kentucky like I did, that was the same shot selection he took at Kentucky when he was the number one option. The difference is this isn't college where you're bigger than your opponent a lot of times. This is the NBA where you can't just back someone down, especially where he was playing at the 4. And another thing, beyond the system, I feel like they never really explored better ways to use him other than what Miller did. They never played him at a small ball center. Why not? Why not? Like
they should have, because the last year he was with the Lakers, they did that a lot, where he played small ball center and he was dominant. Lights out.
Yeah, that was like
lights out.
Dominant stretch of his career, I think. That's when Luke Walton was gassing him up. And I was like, oh shit, Julius Randle's actually going to be nice, because I mean, everyone knows I'm a big Kentucky guy. So I like when they succeed. I was like, yo, this guy's a baller. And he gets to New York. I was hyped right after the signing. And I'm not going to say he let me down. I will say the Knicks really failed with him, probably the most.
It's just unfortunate, man. Like, I'm just tired of people like coming here that I've seen do good things elsewhere. Like, and it's anybody. It's front office people. It's coaching staff. It's like Fizdale. It's Julius Randle. I'm just tired of people like, I know that these are talented people or good people. They've gotten results elsewhere, and then they come here, and then like it's not that we don't get the same results. Like, it's always like we don't come anywhere close. Is what bothers me. It's like we always sign up for one thing, and then it's like how are we always so far off base? Like how are we always not doing the right thing?
Isn't that proof that the system is broken?
Yeah, man, it's tiring. It's tiring.
Because you shouldn't be off that many times.
Let's I'm sure we're gonna touch on a lot of that as we go through a lot more of these players down the list here. I'm gonna skip through a couple of them. Do we have anything important to say on Taj Gibson?
Keep him.
Fine vet for the low, but I would prefer him not starting and getting as many minutes as he does now.
Right. Couple of other. Let's touch on Wayne Ellington.
Goodbye.
I like the idea of keeping Wayne Ellington. Stop. I think. This is gonna sound insane. I understand everyone should yell at me for this take, but you need good 3-point shooters, and I understand he forgot how to do that this year, but he has like a decade of showing that he could do that. I would not mind him being back and giving him a second opportunity. I hate myself for saying this on the podcast. Leave me alone. I think them keeping another 3-point shooter is not the worst thing in the world, even if he forgot how to shoot this year.
I agree, but I'm sure Corbo,
crazy, but yeah.
I'm sure Corbo is going to get to somebody very soon who I think fits that, and I would much rather have him shoot than Ellington.
Yeah. Right. So I'm going to say Reggie Bullock.
Yep, that's him. Yep. I would definitely keep Reggie Bullock. Good shooter. I feel like we didn't even see enough of him this year because he was hurt for the first half. Another guy, good mentality. I'll keep him.
I wouldn't mind Reggie Bullock either, to be quite honest. He played better than I thought he was going to be clear. So, I don't know. I mean, I'd be fine with him. These guys don't make a lot of money. It's like, and there's nobody that's the issue with the 2020 free agent class. Like, there's nobody like I'm tripping over myself to try to, get.
Exactly.
So that's why it's like, well, I mean, I guess if they keep a couple of these guys, it's not the end of the world, It's like, I'm not really thrilled about even saying that, but
I'd much rather have Bullock there than Ellington, but I agree. That's the general point. Is like some of these guys are going to be sticking around here. Harkless. He a few games with the New York Knicks.
I wouldn't mind it.
He 12 games, 10 starts, 6.8 points. This is with the Knicks. 45% from the floor, 28% from three.
I wouldn't mind it, but if we kept Harkless or got him back, it would probably change my like Taj stance a little bit. Like I'd only want like so many of the vets that we had from last year, like I'd want only one of Reggie or Wayne probably. I don't want to have Mo and Taj back. It's like
I would of those two I'd probably take Reggie and Taj. are my picks in that batch.
Given age, I'd probably just take Reggie and Mo, but
Fair enough.
and I also like that Mo can shoot.
All right, let's talk about some of the more interesting players now at this point. Some of the guys that have a little bit more stakes in the actual Knicks plans moving forward. Next guy on my list here is Mitchell Robinson. We talked a lot about him, so we don't have to go too deep at this point. But 61 games, 23 minutes a game, only 7 starts this season. 0.742% field goal percentage, which is the best ever.
Yeah. Once was I just had it up and I lost it. I think it was like 72%.
Yeah, 9.7 points, 7.0 rebounds, 2 blocks per game, down a little bit from last season, but still respectable, especially coming off the bench. We talked about how crucial Mitchell Robinson is to the team. Is there any specific part about his game that you guys want to highlight real quick, or any specific way you want to see him used next season?
Extend that shot, man. I think he can, like, if you watch him in pregame shoot around, he has a jumper. It's there. It's just a matter of putting it in the game. I feel like whether it's the coaching staff not fully embracing that he can shoot, or just him not feeling comfortable yet, even just the mid-range shot I would like, because I really think that's the next level where he becomes like, okay, this guy is all-star status.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I would prefer that he master just simply anything outside of the paint. Doesn't even necessarily need to be a post game, but just some kind of little nearby jumper that he can take. I wouldn't even mind that. Not even advocating for like mid-range for the sake of it. It's just I want him to walk before he runs a little bit, but I've seen him pregame make those threes. I know that he's capable. It's never going to be in the game plan, it seems like, for the foreseeable future. So I don't want to get my hopes up, but he does catch the ball in positions where he could take a short little jump shot or some kind of a little hook. So he should learn some kind of near-ish the hoop territory, like within 8 feet or so. But that's mostly what I want. I just want to see him start games and then just start to expand his offense a little bit further. If they were smart, they'd start him, and the focal point of the offense would be RJ and Mitch pick and rolls to death over and over and over again, or Mitch and Frank pick and rolls because they can do it together pretty well also, and just let Mitch roll to the rim until teams start to stop him, and then that should create opportunities for everybody else, because that's the kind of impact player that Mitch is. But he needs the opportunity in the lineups for it, and not Elfrid Payton. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, let's keep moving down the list here. Our next guy that we got to talk about here is another guy we talked a lot about so far, Frank Ntilikina. Played, 57 games with the team. Did not, his field goal percentage still isn't where it needs to be. He shot 39% for the floor. He shot 32% from 3, which is definitely up significantly from last year. That was a noticeable improvement in his game that I saw. Was his 3-point shot was a little bit cleaner. He started in 26 games, played 20.8 minutes per game, right about where he is for the rest of his career. 3 assists per game. Got his steals up a little bit to 0.9, but I mean, overall, it just seemed like Frank Ntilikina's defensive role became a lot stronger this season, and he was able to fill some of the gaps on offense that we had really been looking for him to fill on an on and off basis this season. But if he continues going down that route of being able to fill those holes, I think Frank Ntilikina is in a good place moving into next year.
And the thing that sucks is he was on a hot streak right before the season got cut short. He had a 20 and 10 night in Washington. I believe that was Monday. And I feel like it was moving up and up in terms of his comfort level on offense. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do. In a perfect world, we draft a point guard, move Frank over to the 2, move RJ up to the 3, and that's literally like my dream right now. And like I said earlier, I either want him to be that starter at the 2 who doesn't need the ball to be effective, or I want him to be getting 20 to 25 minutes off the bench as like the Tony Allen, defensive ace type of thing. Either way, if there are three people the Knicks include in their future plans, I think it should be Mitch, RJ, in no particular order, and then Frank.
Yep. Pretty much in agreement there. Let's keep moving down the list to a couple of other guys. Elfrid Payton is the next one. We didn't really talk about him too much with that last group, but he has that partial guarantee for next season too. He started a lot of the games, split that pretty much with Frank Ntilikina. 45 games played, 36 games started, 10 points per game. 10 points per game. He shot about 44% for the field. Had a pretty atrocious three-point shooting season at only 20%. I mean, Payton, I feel like at times looked like the only competent player out there and the only guy who's able to run an offense. I feel like Ntilikina caught up a little bit as the season progressed. But yeah, I don't really know where the team stands with Elfrid Payton going into this summer. That's an interesting. He's an interesting card for me.
He's not interesting for me. He pisses me off. I'll let Kyle take it from here because I want nothing to do with him.
I think he doesn't make sense on the Knicks. I think if you have him on the Knicks, you're going to try to make him be a starting guard, and he's not. And then we're doing the Jarrett Jack, Emmanuel Mudiay thing once again. I will say that he's a much better player than those two are, and I do think that, in a perfect world, if we had a good competitive team, he'd be a really good bench guard to have. But I think bringing him back next year would kind of point to you want to have him keep starting games for you, and I don't think that that's the move. So if the plan was for him to be our bench guard and we have a better team next year and things are going well, that's cool. But it doesn't really make much sense to me if the whole point is to just give him another chance to be the starting guard. I'm very much in the Elfrid Payton is who he is camp. I just think it's very pointless.
Yeah. So
I don't think he's a terrible player by any means. I just don't think he makes sense in this offense. He, the assists are there, sure, but he of his passes, I think 30% or something damn close to that. I think it was 28, 29% of his assists were to Julius Randle, and I think the next highest percentage like that of duos in the league was 22%. So it's just an absurd amount that he passes to him, and it's wow, that's great that they have a good two-man game. It's a little bit much. It's not really helping the team necessarily.
Yep, I largely agree. A parting of the ways seems to be in order here. Okay, couple more before we kind of wrap up here. We got through a lot of them, but we have this one who we've talked about a little bit before too. Dennis Smith Jr. played in 34 games with the Knicks, started 3 of them, got 15.8 minutes per game. He averaged 5.5 points per game, down from his 14.7 that he scored per game with the Knicks last year. Let's see, what else? 34% field goal percentage, 29.6% from 3. His free throw percentage was at just 50%. Dennis Smith Jr. had a largely lost season due to injuries, personal, tragedies, and just lack of consistent playing time and ability to see the court. We're in quite the situation with Dennis Smith Jr. right now, with the prize of the Kristaps Porzingis trade.
Yeah, I want Dennis. I like Dennis, and I want him to have a good career. So I think for that reason, I don't want him on the Knicks, and it's not because of talent. I just think it was doomed from day one, and luckily no one's really attached him to Porzingis yet, but I think that's inevitable if he was to stay. So I feel like get a new home, get right. The talent's there. I don't know if I really don't think he fits with RJ and Mitch because he can't shoot. I don't think that's ever going to change really. So yeah, just go, but not in malice. Elfrid Payton is flat ass shot. They can go, but Dennis, I hope he finds a good place.
Yeah, no, Dennis Smith Jr. makes me very sad. This is a topic that hurts me very, very deeply, as you guys know. Yeah, I do think he still has the talent. I don't understand what happened this season. I don't know if it was off court stuff initially. I don't know if it was off court stuff and maybe not starting killed his confidence. I don't know. I don't know. He just looked really, really bad this year, man, and it really stinks. He's a good kid. I really wanted to have a good career, like Mike said. I'm rooting for him. It doesn't seem like he's in the Knicks' plans already. They talked a big game for him all summer about him working on his jump shot, and he was such a beast in training camp, and he was taking over, and this, that, and the other thing, all for him to not start. So I'm a little bit bummed out of how things have transpired. I don't know where everything exactly went wrong. I'd love for it to suddenly go correctly, but I don't think that it's going to be here. So I don't think he should be back. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but it is what it is. It's an unfortunate situation. Anytime you get a young talent like that, and it's one thing if it like slowly deteriorates and declines. It's another one like very quickly it goes left, and then it kind of, because there's like nothing we can really do, you know. It's just.
Mm-hmm. So we have 5 players left in the roster. I want to group 3 of them together right now in Kadeem Allen, Iggy Brasdakis, Kenny Wooten. Any points you want to call out from any of these 3 players at this point before we move on to our final 2?
I forgot Kadeem Allen was even on the roster. So there's that.
Yeah, he got some burn this season too. Like I thought we were going to go somewhere where he just wasn't going to play at all this season with everyone else, but like he got 10 games.
No. And one thing some people were complaining about Iggy not getting playing time, but this kind of ties back into Knox, where I was actually happy he was in the G League, because I think next year he'll be a surprising player off the bench, where people will be like, oh, wow, Iggy's actually nice. I feel like we kind of forgot about him after the Summer League.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him get even a little bit of run. I was hoping. I really don't understand why the Knicks, they've really nailed using the G League with Dotson his first season, and then never really used anybody else the same way. You know, in terms of constantly making him available and actually getting him into NBA games at the same time, where he was frequently playing G League games. Like, you guys remember that, right? Like, this was a very regular thing. He'd go down and, you know, he'd do his G League run. He'd come back same day, sometimes be on the bench. And it's like, I wish they would do that with some of these other guys.
Yeah, I agree. I wish they would use that more, but we kind of talked about that. Let's wrap this up with these last couple of guys here. So we have Alonzo Trier next. Trier seemed to be a large part of the Knicks' plans after he played 64 games last season and was kind of a summer league standout, made training camp and really showed what he could do from there. This year, he only played in 24 games. He averaged 6.5 points per game. Pretty much had similar stats to last season. I mean, he was up in field goal percentage to 48%. His 3-point percentage was down a little bit to 36%, but he was shooting nearly 40 last season. 6.5 points per game, 1.2 assists. Nothing really crazy in that respect, but really what was most glaring about Alonzo Trier this season was just his absence. Neither coach really seemed to want to plug him into their lineups at all.
If there were 7 deadly sins that the Knicks committed this season, number 1 is Mitch not starting, obviously. I think Trier not getting playing time is either 2 or 3, whatever your preference is, because there was such a clear need, and I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. There was not one person on the roster who had a more defined role heading into this season than Trier. If you were struggling for points, put him in. And they just didn't do it. And we touched on it earlier where it's like, well, he didn't play defense. Well, shut up. Like, who was in there that was really locking people down?
It was literally Frank, Mitch, sometimes Taj.
Yeah. But the people in front of him, who was playing instead of Washington?
RJ Barrett. Dotson, when they'd give him his occasional 10 minutes once a month off the bench.
Yeah, I know RJ and Zoe didn't play well together in the summer league. I do believe if they would have kept at it, I do think just their player role, like playing styles, mesh in terms of Alonzo could shoot, Barrett could facilitate. Not for long stretches, but there was no reason to not have Alonzo Trier, is my point.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me, especially that like to your point about like, oh well, he doesn't play defense. Like, we're on one of the worst teams in the league. What are you talking about? Like what? Like what do you? We need any advantage we can get right now. He can score. Put him in the game. His catch and shoot numbers from three his rookie season were like 42% or something wild. Put him in the game. You need to score. We have like the worst offense in the league. What are you doing? You don't penalize him for defense. Not now. You penalize him for defense later on. After you've given him consistent minutes and they're blowing big leads. Like, you don't pull him for like everyone points like the one Bucks game. You know, it's like, that's not how this works.
There's always one game.
There's always one game. We could do this with anybody at any time. You could always do the lowlights examples, but you have to go by what the majority is. And we got a majority, good season from him, a good efficient season, and he should have been playing. Somehow, some way he should have been playing. It's irresponsible that he wasn't.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of not rewarding hard work. Like, I went to 3 games myself. Kyle, you've been to a handful more than me. And every time I went out to the court, he was definitely either the guy on the court or one of them. He was always in the gym, and I feel like if you have gym rats, you want to keep those guys there. You want to keep everyone working nonstop and reward them for their hard work. And I didn't see that with Trier, unless he's a gaping asshole behind closed doors. Maybe that's why. That's probably the only excuse I would take at this point.
So moving on from Alonzo Trier now, let's talk about the final player on this roster, RJ Barrett, the Knicks number 3 draft pick in the 2019 draft. He averaged 14.3 points per game. His field goal percentage was at 40%. He was a 32% 3-point shooter. Free throw percentage, which was a big gripe with him all season, ends up being about 61.4. Yeah, RJ had some highs and a good amount of lows this season. He definitely had, I would say a lot of rookie struggles. His shot struggled all season, both from the 3-point line and from the floor. What can we throw around for RJ Barrett right now? Ultimately, would you say that this season was a positive season for RJ Barrett, or would you call the season a negative for him?
Yeah, I'd say neither. I don't know. I mean, he was just really inconsistent. It depends like what splits you look at too, because remember we did the home and road splits, and at home he was a completely different player than he was away. So, I mean, if you look at it that way, half his season he spent, being a pretty good basketball player at home, and away it was pretty abysmal for him. It was pretty difficult. So, I don't know truly what to make of him. I personally have seen enough to be sold on him. I don't know. I don't want to say it was a positive season either. They didn't optimize him. They didn't play him in great lineups. I don't think he had the ball enough or enough responsibility. But it definitely wasn't a bad year. And I think if you're just trying to go off like the percentages, like a lot of people do when they box score watch and say that, well, there's no way he could have had a good year, which, shooting 40 and 32%. Like, well, he played pretty good defense. Like if you're watching the games, you saw that. We saw him, the playmaking translated. We saw that he could rebound at the NBA level at this young age. So I saw a lot of pluses, to be honest with you. And the way he scores, he's crafty. He gets into the paint kind of whenever he wants, and he struggles to finish right now, sure. But I just see like a lot more going for him than I do not going for him, I guess. And I feel like he's got a very safe floor in this league. And I think next year and the year after, it'll be pretty evident. But I don't think by any stretch we can say this was like a bad year for him either.
Positive, and he was exactly what I expected him to be, and even better in some regard. I knew rebounding would translate immediately. I knew transition scoring would translate immediately. The one thing that surprised me was he was actually more competent on defense. His major wart remains his shot and shot selection. And we saw some of that at Duke where he almost rushes his game. Like, especially if he's not getting the ball early, he'll have a bad habit of just throwing shit to the wall and hoping it sticks. So for next season, I want him to, harness that down and hopefully bringing in a point guard, whether it's a veteran or a rookie, to put him in better spots to succeed and run the floor more. Hopefully that's just enough to get him to that next level. I feel safe saying he's a second or third best player on a good team.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I would say that's about where I kind of picture him going from here too. I think the Knicks are obviously looking for players to pair with RJ Barrett at this point. And I think they'll be doing a little bit more of that now that they understand where his game is looking this offseason. We were going to talk a little bit about the offseason too in this pod, but I think we'd better save that for next week, considering this one got pretty long as it is. So I think we might as well wrap this up now. Make sure you check out Blue Wire Podcast, all the podcasts on the network. Check out the Knicks Wall, at the Knicks Wall, at the Knicks Wall Podcast, or at TKW Podcast. Check us out on iTunes. Give us a rating, review. Go to theknickswall.com. Check out all the content there. Mike, without any basketball going on right now, do you have anything that you'd like to plug?
Things, surprisingly. Draft board will be coming back. Version 3, we're going to jump back in the top 5. Draft season, we were going to record this Sunday, so look out for that sometime next week. Anything else? Yeah, and I'm also working on a possible, a little mini blog on possible trade targets. So look out for that, and check out theknickswall.com. We're gonna keep you guys entertained during this quarantined life. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but we got you covered. And make sure you're following Twitch. Kyle's been on there already. Sean's been on there. We're gonna be active on that as well. So a lot of content coming.
Dope. All right. Well, I guess that about wraps us up. So some personal news from me before we get out of here. Figure I'd drop this in at the the hour 33 mark of this podcast here. But next week's episode will be my final episode as host of the Knicks Wall podcast. I'm moving on to check out some other things. I'll have some news on that in the future as well. But we're going to do a nice little send-off pod for me, I'm hoping. Kyle and Mike are going to continue to hold the show down in my absence, and they will do a just fine job doing that. But I'll save the official goodbyes for when they happen, but it's been a blast the last couple of years. So, looking forward to seeing what Mike and Kyle can do from here. Looking forward to talking to you all next week. And, I think that about does it for us this week. So we'll talk to you all then.